Welcome back D&D fans. If you haven't seen part 1, I'd suggest starting there. The card should pop up here, but if you're caught up, let's dive into part 2 as the adventurers continue on their journey. After the last episode and choosing to evict the Ravens tribe from their castle, the group are ready to set out and find this necromancer. They head around town questioning people, and once they're made aware of the dwarven bartender being taken, that's crossed the line for them. No TV and beer make groups something. So they decide to head out of town and follow his trail. Just on the outskirts of town, towards a dark and dreary looking forest, they find the dwarves' helmet. Now you could tell it was the dwarves because it had a half broken tusk. They follow the trail deeper until they find some trouble, finding a group of goblins burning trees and poking around the swamp water. The group wastes no time in firing attacks, and as they move closer, a giant hand slams next to them as a mossy swamp creature emerges from the bubbling water. Before I can explain the situation or its intentions, the mage hurls a fireball. Now, I try and explain not everything in this game fireball, but it might not necessarily be fireball. These other skills on your list let you fireball. So this creature's hit in the face with a giant fireball and a brawl breaks out. It gets well down below half health before one of them stops to think. Hold on, should we maybe talk to it instead of killing it? Well, what a great idea that could be. I don't like to influence them too much, but it felt like any situation was dealt with nothing but force, so I'm glad they decided to take this approach. They talked to the creature and realised it was only trying to protect the swamp and was provoked by the goblins destroying it. Just a simple misunderstanding. They ask him if he's seen the dwarf, and he mentions the goblins have been marching prisoner after prisoner by the swamp and into the tower above. Thanking him, they move on to the tower, and after dispatching 2 guards outside, try to work out the best way of entering. 2 of them decide the front door is too obvious, and attempt to ascend via ropes and magic, whilst the barbarian and ranger bumble through the front door and make their way up the staircase. Both groups arriving at the top, the wizard and bard diving through the window, and ranger and barbarian crashing through the door. They're met in a room full of prisoners. Chained to the walls, it looks like they've been here a while. The ranger acts rashly, drawing his bow and fires off a shot at the goblins. Now he rolls a crit miss, and the arrow ricochets off the goblin's armour, striking a civilian and killing them. That's the thing that happened, and this episode doesn't get any better for him. Believe it or not, the same fight, the ranger fires off another shot during the same battle, rolling another crit miss and bullseyes another civilian. Eventually, the room has been cleared entirely. Unfortunately, that doesn't just mean the goblins and their pet dogs, it's the civilians as well. So far, this group has run another tribe out of town and killed any prisoners. Are they the bad guys? Probably the shadiest part of it all is they all agreed to say nothing and said the prisoners were found dead. They proceed into the only other room in this tower. It looks sort of like an office. They assume, because of the magical items, probably where the necromancer does his bidding. The barbarian steals an amulet off the table and puts it on. The wizard feels the presence of the necromancer and gets his scent to follow to a nearby town you guys may know called Greenest. Just then, the office is engulfed in a shadow as they peer from the window and see a gigantic blue dragon fly overhead. Yes, you've guessed it right. The story is intertwined and leads heavily into the Hoard of the Dragon Queen next. Basically, I picked up a Tiamat figure which is gorgeous and the players were asking about it turning up, so I've merged my story into that so we could eventually lead up to Tiamat. The group head into Greenest and fight back hordes of kobold, managing to save a family just in time, as they are then all offered shelter in the keep. Now, as this is all happening, the barbarian is hearing whispers. None of the other characters can, and the barbarian doesn't quite understand why. I think this is probably a good place to stop. I know there was a year break, but 2020 is the year I'm going to focus heavily on YouTube and doing this type of content. So expect these videos monthly. I know the art isn't heavy, but it does take me a little while to record it, draw them, and get it all together. And at some point, we are going to catch up with the group I'm playing with right now, so we'll see how that goes. The next video will be a Rick and Morty one-shot from the latest Rick and Morty D&D series, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. Make sure you subscribed if you would like to see more. Let me know your adventures in the comments. That's my favourite thing about this, the community and you other players. And thank you all so much for listening this far, and I will see you very soon for part 3, where the group picks their champion, battles a blue dragon, and so much more. But until next time,